When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth? Sound. We're good. All right. Shalom, everyone. Some of you were thinking Shabbat Shalom. Tradition. Yeah, sometimes we get used to saying Shabbat Shalom. The regular Shalom just seems a little half empty, right? All right, well, Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday night Torah study. And I see that we're going to be a little bit lopsided again today, where more people are sitting on one side of the room than the other. That's okay. Because I'm just going to look straight ahead at Gabe and Marty, and then I'll be looking at the camera. Okay? So that'll work out. If you have a phone, go ahead and turn that to silent or off or whatever you need to do for that. Okay? All right, I'll put mine off to the side. I don't need that tonight. I got the clock up there I can see. All right, so just a kind of quick rundown of what we're going to be doing tonight. And actually, you know what? I left my notes here. All right, so what we do in the MTOI Torah study is we go over the Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Matot Massei, so it's a nice double portion. Okay, it's also the conclusion of the book of Bimidbar. Okay, so we're finishing one more book, which means we have how many left to go? One more book. We're going to start with Devarim next week, which just so happens to be my favorite book, just about. Okay, so we're going to be doing our final readings through the book of Numbers, the book of Bimidbar today, in the double portion known as Matot Massei, okay, which is basically the idea of, well, what does Matot mean? What's it mean? Tribes. And what does Massei mean? Journeys or departures, okay? So we have that to cover today. This is going to cover us from Numbers chapter 30 through the end of the book of Numbers, okay? So we're going to cover all that today, and which will be a lot of excitement. We have, I think, 14 readers today, so we're going to have a lot of readings, which means almost everybody in the room gets to read. Okay? Which is just going to be fantastic. It won't be any problem at all. Okay, That being said also, okay, for those of you that are new to all of this, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of prayer time, which means we're going to take up any prayer needs, any praise reports here in the congregation. Also on the live stream, Manny is manning. he's there handling the live stream desk, and so he'll handle those kind of things and the comments, etc. Do you have a mic for that? No. Okay. So Nate's going to run around with the mic, and he'll bring it to you when we get to you. Okay, so that'll work out. We'll also have some quick announcements. Let me just go through some of them now, and then I'll repeat them in between the readings portion and the discussion portion. So let me get out my little Torah study announcement sheet here. Okay. So why don't we go through, what I'll do is we'll go through the prayer needs first and the praises, etc. Then I'll do the announcements. And then we'll go ahead and read the Torah portion, do another quick little brief announcements, repeat, and then we'll go ahead and discuss the portion, okay? Okay, here we go. So if you have a praise report or a prayer need, go ahead and raise your hand if you're here locally on live stream. Manny will take down and make note of it. Okay, so we're going to begin with Angelia. Okay, if you'll go ahead and stand up and let us know what your need is or praise.
I have a praise report and a prayer request. So lately I've been struggling with my job that I thought was going to be full-time. And it's less than full-time. It's really very little hours. So I talked to Rabbi about it, and he says, well, just hang in there until you find another job. Okay. And Manny helped me be really encouraged that day as well. And so I've spent the rest of the day looking for a new job, which I'm going to start on Sunday, that's going to finally give me full-time hours.
Yay!
And my prayer request is, now the past 3 months I've been struggling with getting Tanis independent, because in 3 months and 3 days he'll be of age, he'll be 20. And it's been really hard as a mom to let those apron strings go. And now I've got to do the same thing with Elric in a way, and he's got different special needs than Tanis had, and he says, well, Mom, I just want to go to regular high school. I don't want to be homeschooled or anything. So he's going to go to Walker Valley. And he's got more white in his personality than I do, and it's kind of scary to me that he has such a hard time speaking up, and he's not coordinated. He could trip over a piece of dust and fall on his face. And he's got panic attacks from when we lived in a bad high-crime neighborhood back in Illinois. So he's healing from his PTSD and his panic, and I'm having a hard time with this whole high school idea. I want to keep him at home. And so if you could pray for both me and Elric. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. And look, he can always come back. But let him go ahead and try. It's what he wants to do. But I also want to point out that if you notice that one of the things that I've been saying about Abba honoring and blessing comes through the process. Okay, when Angelia got off the phone with Manny and then spoke to me about her job situation, and then she vocally and I believe emotionally committed to stay the job while she was looking for a job. And I said, no, go ahead and make sure you're looking for one. But she had made the commitment to follow the process. That doesn't mean, by the way, that if you do so, you'll get one as quickly as she did. Okay, but you might. But it's the process that's, necessary. And so I felt like she had released the fear and the frustration, and she was just ready to do it, and see how Abba honored that. This blessing is great. Okay? So, again, it's not always because the leadership has all the answers. It's because the process impresses our Heavenly Father in your level of commitment to the process that He then chooses to bless you. Does that make sense? Okay? It's never about the cultist leader has all the answers thing. It has to do with, are you willing to submit to a process so the Father will then see that you are committed to following His instructions, and then He can bless you. So good job on that, Angelia. Okay, who's next? Sarah Beth?
Shalom. Just wanted to do prayer and a praise. Praise, I found out that I need to move just last Massei Shabbat, and I need to find a new roommate, hopefully, because I don't really want to live by myself. And it's kind of looking, okay, I need to move quickly, and yeah, a bunch of things to think about and juggle all at once. And in the space of 3 days, Abba willing, all things are settled.
Amen. Amen.
So the prayer with that is there was an incident at work today, and just prayer that everything goes well with that.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, so something else I wanted to go back to, Angelia, but so in case we have new people on and they hear that she says, my son has more white than I do, it has nothing to do with color or race. Okay, because some people new might be on there going, what does that mean? Okay, we all did for a thing I called Up to the Challenge, which is learning to understand ourselves better so we can understand others better, and we did a personality test, and most of us took the test, and it came up with that you were one of 4 colors: white, yellow, red, and blue. And so if white simply is a very quieter, peaceful, independent type of personality. And so being very white means that the person's not likely to speak up as much or make any kind of stirring the pot issues. And if they're suffering through something, they'll just do it quietly and that kind of stuff. So that's what she was saying. Just in case, we want to make sure people aren't wondering, what does that mean? Okay? And so if you want to know what that means, just go to colorcode.com. I get nothing from that, but that's the test we all took, and it's free. And then if you do that, you'll know what we're talking about when we mention being red or blue or white or yellow. Okay. So I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate when, we watch people go through challenging situations they didn't expect, like Sarah Beth, all of a sudden finding out she needs to move and find a roommate and do everything else. But having it all come together in the span of a few days is very, very much a blessing. So what we learn is, go back to the fear of Yahweh teaching, don't panic. Don't be afraid. He knows that, he knew before it happened that you were going to have the problem. He knew this was going to come up at the moment it did, on the day it did, at the same time, exactly, perfectly. Another thing is when you hear Matzei Shabbat, it means the after Shabbat, okay? Erev Shabbat meaning the beginning of, okay? So just so that we hear terms, you know what that is, okay? All right. So it was at the end of Shabbat, it was over, and then she got this information that this was going to happen. So anyway, who's next? Rabbi Tom.
Thank you, Shalom. I got a call this evening from a follower of Shalom, Kenny Posey. He's the retired sheriff's deputy with a very bad speech impediment. And so I said, well, we'll pray for him. He's having a few problems, but he's struggling along. And I'd also like to ask prayer for however many members of my family will be traveling down this week. Somewhere between 12 and 15, I'm not sure. But,
wow.
They'll be coming down. And a couple of them want to also meet Rabbi Steve.
Awesome. I look forward to meeting them.
Yeah, let's pray that they have a safe journey. Because one's coming from Wisconsin and the rest are coming from Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. All right, anybody else? Okay, Nate.
Prayer and praise report. Pray that my work will go well. Praise report is that they've increased my workload even outside of the ER now. I'm not just one of the instructors for some, I'm the coordinator now. They've promoted me to coordinator this week. So
Awesome.
And my son is making some big plans here shortly, life-changing plans by September 15th.
Okay, I don't think this is going out of shop, but every time that you think about going back in a direction that you want, Abba shows you that the direction that you didn't want is going to keep giving you blessing. That's just an inside thing with me and Nate.
I'm also part of the FEMA response team now, too. They put me on that as well. So.
Okay, fantastic. All right, live stream. Oh, wait, nope, Michelle first, and then live stream.
I just got word that one of my uncles passed away. He was my great uncle. He's my dad's uncle, and they were pretty close. So if you can just keep my dad in prayer and his family.
Absolutely. And if they're on live stream, we're going to wave at them. All right. Manny, what do we got?
Oh, we've got a ton. Let's see. Stephen Waffle, prayer sold, house sold, truck reserved, packing. We need to find a place to live in Tennessee.
And we have 4 sets of seat for you. Do you want us to hold them for you when you get here, or do you want us to ship them? Because we got his order today. You can tell Manny what you want him to do with them.
That's true. Just email me or call me, text me. You know.
Just put it on the chat box.
That's true.
Ship them or hold on to them. Okay,
Hopefully I'll see it.
All right.
Let's see. I'm going to try to do this and talk. Here we go. Anonymous, prayer needed for... you know what, Stephen Waffle? Prayers for Evan moving to Tennessee as well, and prayer for success in his business. Anonymous, prayer needed for healing for Dominique Moore. Alyssa, I'm giving praise that the pain is lessening from her surgery. Jack Oxenrider, please pray for favor with our wayward daughter as she seems to be interested in changing. Give me wisdom from above. Lisa Kennedy is asking for prayer for a friend named Gabriel for his recovery rehab at the hospital. Evangeline, praise for Rochelle. She got the job, and some unspoken requests, please. Kylie Tilton, praise our daughter Ellie's ankle is healing much better than expected and should fully heal with no surgery. Tommy Stevenson, prayer for Selena's health. She's really struggling with her digestive system. R. Clark, prayer for family that is dealing with health issues and hospitalizations. Michael Diaz, praise report. Rick Berry and Waffle Man are one step closer to Tennessee. Rick Berry resolved issues with Uber at his house. Waffle Man, I think, sold his house. Yes, he did. MTOI Lakeview, Ohio, praise for all the growth within MTOI. Amen to that. Another one, anonymous, prayer for Billy and Dominique Moore's marriage and for a baby to conceive. Carrie Silveri, praises for getting back child support that puts me closer to getting to Tennessee and some unspoken prayers. April Hoka, prayers for dealing with health issues. Sean Earls, Yah is so amazing. I've been in awe lately at how our Father works. Beverly D'Amico, please pray that Abba provides the cash required to pay for medical interventions for 2 of her grandsons. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, praying for safe travels, please. So far, we have already had a couple of issues. His mom fell and broke her knee. His father had car problems while traveling. Please keep us in prayers. Charles Davis, continued prayers for part-time job. Been filling out applications for the past 2 weeks. Rick Berry, praise report that our brother Kevin Shutt is being released from the hospital back to rehab nursing facility. Praise Abba. Allow me to catch up here. It's moving too quick. All right, Charlie and Deanne Johnson, praise for many blessings this week. Jean, praising Yah for removing 3 problem people from her work life. Amen. Anonymous, prayer for Courtney Chiason to come to the Lord, and for Aiden, her son. We told her we could not keep him on Shabbat, and she got offended and removed him from our care. Edis, prayer for healing, direction, and wisdom, please. Randy Baker, prayer for job interview tomorrow morning. Rick Berry, another praise report that he got final mortgage approval this morning, and his move to Cleveland is on for August 7th.
Amen.
Amen.
We need to start building the building now.
Yeah.
Because this going to Cleveland thing has been accelerating. All right. Tanis just said practically an exodus. Very good.
Laura Davis says, thanks for prayer for our family and keep praying. And thank you, Rabbi, for the family council.
I guess if it's an exodus, we're going to have to call it Cleveland Goshen.
JC Miscoro, play for Yah to give me favor in my career and my financial needs. Lisa Gallegos, praise report. Mother-in-law went home today after triple bypass surgery last Friday. Amen.
Amen.
Let's see. Nolan Bibb, unspoken. Charles Davis, continued prayers for a part-time job he's been filling out applications for these past few weeks. I think he double-dipped there. Let's see. Claire Walk in the Way, praise report. Yah made it possible for me to be here tonight. Amen. Welcome. Let's see here. And last one, Tony, praise that my work stress is lessening. Prayers for continued strength and wisdom.
All right, amen, amen. Okay.
My mom and dad said hi. They waved back.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we miss you guys. You guys need to move to Tennessee also. Oh, I'm sorry. Did that come out loud? Oh. I guess if we get a property, we can call it Goshen, Tennessee, right? We can put a little label on it. Call it Goshen. The gathering point before Exodusing, right? All right, so let's have somebody, wait a minute, we need that mic for closing prayer, or praying for the prayer and opening prayer, actually. Why don't you hand it to Rabbi Tom? He'll open us.
Avinu Malkeinu, great Abba. Father, thank you. Thank you for another opportunity to come before you, for another opportunity to gather together and study your Torah and learn from it and apply it to our lives. Now, Father, this evening we brought many prayer requests and praise reports before you. Father, some of these needs are very urgent, and some of these needs are very dear to the hearts of the people who brought them out this evening. And Father, we know that you want to do good things for your children. And Father, Yeshua said, and we're reminding ourselves, not you, that if we ask any good thing of you in his name, that it would be granted. So Father, we believe that all these requests that were made are a good thing. And Father, we have full faith and confidence that as a loving and kind Heavenly Father, that you will grant our requests as long as they are not contrary to your will. And now, Father, we also ask your blessing on this Torah study. Open our hearts and our minds to receive the word that we are reading here and to benefit and to learn from the discussions that will follow. Bless Rabbi Steve as he leads us in this study. Bless all who participate, and bless all the readers. We ask all this, B'Shem Yeshua Meshikeno, in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah and Redeemer. Amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you. Okay, a couple of quick announcements. Okay, so I actually brought a little announcement sheet here so I can remember them. All right, we have, for those of you that are here, we're doing Rosh Chodesh here Friday. Okay? You all should have been already signed up on our sign-up sheet. If you have not, see the Rebbitzin. She's here after the Torah study, and make sure you do get signed up, or at least make sure to let us know that you're coming and how many people in your family are coming. Some of you on the live stream are from here locally, and you have not yet. You know who you are. You're planning to come, but you haven't told us that you're coming. Don't assume that we're going to just assume you're coming. Please give us a head count and make sure it's official that you're coming and how many in your family are coming. Okay, so Rebbitzin needs to know. Okay. That will be starting here Friday at 6:30. Now, you can get here a little earlier. I'd like to start at 6:30. If we don't get started till exactly 6:30 because people are just showing up and we don't need till almost 7, that'll still be okay. We're going to be doing the Rosh Chodesh service at 8. So it'll still give us an hour to eat, okay? But let's see if we can be here a little before 6:30, get whatever things started and cooked and whatever. We'll get all that going on and prepared so that we can start eating somewhere between 6:30 and 7 and have enough time to fellowship a little bit and then have our service. Now, we're not going to have to leave immediately either because the service is only going to run about 15, 20 minutes. It's a very brief service, and then we can certainly hang out for a few more minutes after that and enjoy Erev Shabbat together. Amen? Amen. Okay. And by the way, I did take a copy of the Erev Shabbat sort of service that we used to do into my office to remind me that I'm supposed to be editing it and changing it and fixing it and tweaking it, whatever I'm going to do to it. So we'll have that soon. But that's, remember, on rabbi relative time, okay? So, okay, just so you know, okay, when I say soon, that means sometime before Mashiach shows up, okay. That's rabbi relative time, okay, just so you know. All right, for all of you on live stream, we will be live streaming that Rosh Chodesh service at 8 o'clock, okay, 8 o'clock Friday night. Now that is Rosh Chodesh. The calendar we're using is Friday, so that's actually the first of the month. Normally you do Rosh Chodesh the night before, but because of the challenges of locations and building use and everything else and getting people to come, we thought at least if we can get it done at the end of the day before the sun goes down, it's still a celebration of the new month, So, because we don't have anything in Scripture that says the night before, as soon as the sun goes down, you need to do a Rosh Chodesh service. It just says celebrate the new moon, and we will, okay? All right, so. Beginning August 3rd, again, this is for the local people here, and to provoke to jealousy the people not here, we'll be starting our men's classes and our ladies' classes here in the congregation. Yay! All right, I had a really great meeting with Rebbitzin Joanne and Rebbitzin Julie, and talking about the ladies' class specifically. And I did talk with Rabbi Tom a little bit about the men's class, so we're prepared, and we're really excited about what this class will be about. And just so you get a little preview, so you understand, we're going to be working on understanding what Yahweh had in mind when he made you. Okay? What did he think when he made a man? What did he think? What was his idea of what that looked like when he made a woman? Not what we think, not what our culture thinks, not what all the years of development of history and traditions thinks, but what did the creator of man and woman have in his mind that was supposed to look like? Okay? So that will be the main focus, is getting eventually to that. We're going to have to clean up a lot of mess in our already understandings of everything else first before we get there. So it'll be a process. But that's going to be the goal, is to come out of that class at some point with a much better understanding of what he had in mind when he made you, whichever one you are, right? Now, of course, he did not make LGBTQ, ABCDLMP. All right? He made man and he made woman. And we're going to understand what he intended when he did that. Okay? All right? So let's just understand that that's the class we're doing. Because I know some people, with the way we are today in society, this whole gender thing becomes a big deal. How dare you just say you're having a men's class and a woman's class? Well, I just said it. Sorry. Too bad on you. Okay. Now, there. Nah. All right. Okay, look, this is what we're using. We're using this thing called the Bible and the Scriptures and our understanding of the Creator from that. And that's what he talks about. Okay? Now, so that's this Sabbath after Oneg. Okay, so plan to stay a little longer. The class should run about an hour each time we do it. Should be every other week. Okay, on an every other week basis. All right? Then, of course, we have leadership is going to have a meeting on Sunday the 18th. And then on Labor Day weekend, on that Sunday and Monday, we're going to be doing a Congregational garage sale here on the property for those of you that are local. That's only if you wish to have the things you bring sell and support and be used the proceeds to support the MTOI Academy. If you've got stuff you just want to sell to put money in your pocket, that's fine. Do that at your house. Or we could do that another time. This is for the trying to be, it's a fundraiser for the school. Okay? If you don't want to bring all your stuff here, you've got stuff that's just too much to move, and you still would like to do this in your neighborhood and still donate some of that or whatever piece you want to the school, that's great. You're certainly welcome still on Labor Day weekend to do your own garage sale, but the stuff that's coming here, the intent of it is to support the school. Okay? All right. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah, Feast of Trumpets, whatever offends you the least, is on September the 30th. Because I know people get all hung up on what the names of things are, okay? You have to understand that there's multiple calendars in your Bible. There's calendars that we use to count days and months for feast days. And by the way, that feast day calendar really only goes until the end of Sukkot, and then it has a real bunch of long time before there's really nothing going on until we get to Aviv again, and then it starts all over again. But also, you have to understand the counting of years. And the counting of years starts with Tishrei. because that's what it says in Leviticus 25. And so, that's what we need to understand, as opposed to Leviticus 23, which talks about the counting of months for the feast days. All right, so there's calendars for different things. Okay, so calling it Rosh Hashanah, or the head of the year, is absolutely appropriate. Yom Kippur, October 9th. I'm hoping someday I won't have to keep saying this whole thing about Rosh Hashanah and the whole thing. People will just get that. Okay, actually, that's going to give me an excuse to give my bullet point of the day. You ready? Rabbi's bullet point of the day. We should have like a theme music and a little big bursting thing. Okay? All right. Drum roll, theme, and big thing flashing on the screen. Rabbi's bullet point of the day, or something like that. Okay. This hit me yesterday or Sunday when I was counseling some people and talking about some things. Look, because a lot of you are still out there, especially on the live stream, and you're searching the internet, you're searching and calling and talking to people, whatever, for answers to questions, for information. You're searching for information. I'm going to encourage you that that's a mistake. What you're supposed to be searching for is a teacher. Okay? And if you think I'm wrong, go read Ephesians chapter 4 and read when Paul talks about how we need, until we all come into the fullness of the completeness of Messiah, we need 5 roles in our lives: apostles and evangelists and prophets and shepherds and teachers. Okay? And so I recommend and encourage you to be looking for an anointed, appointed teacher. You need a teacher. You don't need 30 of them. You don't need 8 of them. That doesn't mean you can't listen to more than one. You need a teacher. You need one person that you can go to when you're confused to help straighten things out. Okay, so because people call me after they search the internet, they've seen 57 things and now they're all confused. I get emails saying, I've searched the internet about this topic and now I'm all confused. Of course you are. You don't have a teacher. Well, I don't think we're supposed to have where in the scriptures the verse that says that Yahweh or anybody else cares about what you think? Was that too straight? Where's the verse that says that anybody really cares about what you think? Well, I don't think we're supposed to have. I think the few people in the Bible we see do that, and they get in a lot of trouble. Because the way that a man thinks leads to death. All right, the way this seems right to a man, right, that's how you think. The way it seems right to you leads to death. Find yourself a teacher. Okay? Because you're only causing yourself heartache, frustration, and confusion if you're just going to search for information. Can we all agree that any topic you can think of, you can type into YouTube and find at least 5 to 10 different varieties of answers by different teachers from different flavors of Christianity, Judaism, or Messianic, Hebrew roots, whatever, and that will absolutely not all agree with each other. Can we agree? So now what do you do with all that? And then I love when some of you will call me up because you want me to explain what the other teacher meant by what they said. No. Okay? Not going to play. I'll sit that one out. Okay? All right, so that was my nugget of the day. Stop searching for info. You have your questions? Find the teacher. Pray for the teacher. Search for the teacher. If it's me, great. If it's not me, that's fine. But you need, according to if you like Paul or don't like Paul, he tells you you need a teacher. By the way, there's a lot of other verses say the same thing. That you need to be taught. You need instruction. There need to be teachers. Okay? So that was just my little nugget that came up, and I just wanted to throw that to you. If you got nothing else out of tonight, and you only got that, trust me, that will make an invaluable benefit. Manny? Okay, so people are asking, what if you have a teacher in your area? Look, if they are teachers in the modern day, they're accessible by phone, by Skype, by Zoom, by Facebook Messenger. I am. Other teachers are also. This is how we, in the modern era, provide our services as teachers. Now, a lot of teachers are not accessible at all because they're not really teachers in that mode. They're speakers. There's a difference between a teacher and a speaker. You interact with a teacher. The speaker comes and just gives a message, okay? and then you can do whatever you want with it. You need somebody to call and ask questions and get answers from. Now, you don't want 57 of them, and you're not looking for opinion polls. If you call me up looking for an opinion poll, if I catch you, if I have a feeling that's what you're doing, I will stop you, interrupt, and ask you if you just want my opinion to add to the mix, and then I will cease to answer that question. Because I take very seriously anything I tell you that if you do it, that's on me if I'm wrong. And so if I'm going to put all of my heart and my risk at bay there to go ahead and get, then I want to know that you're listening and wanting to hear a teacher, not just getting an opinion poll. Okay? Now, when you're vetting me out and trying to figure me out, yeah, you want to know where I stand on a bunch of stuff. Absolutely, that's different. But at some point, if you're just looking to, because what's happening is you have in your mind what you're looking for, and then you're waiting to find a teaching that agrees with what you want it to say. And that's the problem. You don't want to do that. That's not the right way to go about it. Okay? And that's why we're going to probably do a nice long redo of learn and teach the Torah, or some sort of argument or case for the teacher, and that we're supposed to eventually become teachers. All of us, that's the goal. Remember what I've said about the teachings that I do. They're supposed to accomplish 4 things at some point. You should understand it so you can do it, so that you can defend it, so that you can teach it. But you're not going to teach it just because you heard it once and you barely understand the material. Okay, I'm sorry. I told my wife I was in one of those moods today. I was just going to go on a rant. So that was my rant before we came here today. I hope I'm not being disrespectful, but you need to know the truth. Okay? The system of Scripture is not designed for the individual to figure it out themselves and walk it out. It's designed to be done in a group setting with an authority structure and teachers. That is his plan. If you don't like it, take it up with him. Not my plan, not my idea. If I didn't have to do this, my life would be a lot easier. Okay? But I'm submitted to his plan. Trust me, Manny is laughing because he's starting to get a lot of the questions. He's getting all these phone calls and the internet stuff, and he's like, wow, is this what Rabbi has to deal with every day? Yep. Okay, and then he brings the ones that he doesn't know what to do with to me so he can learn the right answers. That's a disciple and a discipler's relationship, or a student and a teacher relationship. I don't really know what to say here, and I'm not going to make up an answer and be wrong. I'm going to let you be the one that answers it and come to the teacher. And by the way, if you ask him, at least 8 out of 10 times, all I'm telling him is what teaching to give them to listen to. I'm not even answering the question. Or sometimes I'll test him to say, and what teaching do you think that is? And he's like, and then I think the last one the answer was, do you know the Father and the Son? And I said, right. Bing, 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 bing. Okay? Always try to, if people ask you questions, I recommend always answer it with the teaching. Point them to the teaching, then you stay out of trouble. Okay, what are we doing? Matot, Massei. All right, so that should, then I want to cover a few more things, which is Sukkot. We're excited. How many people we got coming so far? About? Stacia? Over 150 right now. All right? And it's probably going to double before we get to October. So just, keep sending in the registration forms, calling up to get yourself aligned with what kind of housing, etc. It's going to be great. Okay. And that will be October the 13th through 22nd. Sukkot itself is the 14th through the 20th. Shemini Atzeret's the 21st. The 2 holy days are the 14th and the 21st, okay? So if in case you want to know what day, by the way, these dates are on our website on the Holy Feast Days page, where it lists all the days you need to take off for work, as well as it lists just when the holy days are. Because you only have the 7 annual Shabbats that go with that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the Appointed Times of Yahweh teaching, where it explains all these things, or Introduction to the Appointed Times. Okay, and I think that should cover it. Yes, good? All right. Matot, Massei. So this is exciting. We're finishing a book today. I'm already ready to say chazak, chazak. Okay, here we go. All right, so It's going to take us from Numbers chapter 30 to the end of the book of Numbers. We have 14 readings. That's a lot of readings because we have a double portion today, Matot and Massei. Okay? And so we've got a bunch of chairs here that will fill up. As people step out of them, you can go ahead and fill them in. If we need to, we could have people read more than once, and that's fine. All right, we'll begin with, okay, so you're up here to read also? Okay, did you have a preference?
Wherever you want.
All right, you can go first. You're right here. Why not? All right, might as well get you up there first. It doesn't matter. He can have this one. Well, don't bang into the keyboard. All right. Give you this.
Yes, sir.
116. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, he's going to take us now in the beginning of this from chapter 30, verses 1 through 16.
And Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, This is the word which Yahweh has commanded. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh, or swears an oath to bind himself by some agreement, he does not break his word. He does according to all that comes out of his mouth. Or if a woman vows a vow to Yahweh, and binds herself by some agreement, while in her father's house in her youth, and her father hears her vow and the agreement by which she has bound herself, and her father has kept silent towards her, then all her vows shall stand, and every agreement with which she has bound herself stands. But if her father forbids her on the day that he hears, then none of her vows nor her agreements by which she has bound herself stand. And Yahweh pardons her because her father has forbidden her. But if she at all belongs to a husband while bound by her vows, or by a rash utterance from her lips by which she has bound herself, and her husband hears it, and he has kept silent towards her on the day that he hears, then her vow shall stand, and her agreements by which she bound herself do stand. But if her husband forbids her on the day that he hears it, then he has nullified her vow which she has vowed, and the rash utterance of her lips by which she bound herself, and Yahweh pardons her. But any vow of a widow or a divorced woman by which she has bound herself stands against her. And if she vowed in her husband's house or bound herself by an agreement with an oath, and her husband heard it, and has kept silent towards her, and did not forbid her, then all her vows shall stand, and every agreement by which she bound herself stands. But if her husband clearly nullified them on the day he heard them, then whatever came from her lips concerning her vows, or concerning the agreement binding her, it does not stand. Her husband has nullified them, and Yahweh pardons her. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict her being, let her husband confirm it, or let her husband nullify it. But if her husband is altogether silent at her from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or all the agreements that bind her. He confirms them because he has kept silent toward her on the day that he heard. But if he nullifies them after he has heard, then she shall bear her crookedness. He shall bear her crookedness. These are the laws which Yahweh commanded Moshe between a man and his wife, between a father and his daughter, in her youth in her father's house.
Amen. Amen. 1 second, let me move my stuff here. All right, thank you, Rabbi Tom. Okay, next up we have Nate. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Nate, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Nate's going to read in chapter 31, verses 1 through 18.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Take vengeance for the children of Israel on the Midianites. After that you are to be gathered to your people. And Moshe spoke to the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves for the campaign, and let them go against the Midianites to take vengeance for Yahweh on Midian. Send 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel for the campaign. So there were supplied from the tribes of Israel 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed ones for the campaign. And Moshe sent them on the campaign, 1,000 from each tribe, them and Pinchas, son of Eleazar, the priest on the campaign, with the set-apart utensils and the trumpets for sounding in his hand. And they fought against the Midianites, as Yahweh commanded Moshe, and killed all the males. And they killed the sovereigns of Midian, with the rest of those who were pierced, MTOI and Rechem and Sur and Hur and Reba, the 5 sovereigns of Midian, and they killed Bilam, son of Beor, with the sword. And the sons of Israel took all the women of Midian captive with their little ones, and took as spoil all their livestock and all their possessions. And they burned with fire all the cities where they dwelt and all their settlements. And they took all the spoil and all the booty, both of man and beast. And they brought the captives and the booty and the spoil to Moshe and to Eleazar the priest and to the congregation of the children of Israel, to the camp in the desert plains of Moab by the Jordan of Jericho. And Moshe and Eleazar the priest and all the leaders of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp. But Moshe was wroth with the officers of the army, with the commanders of the thousands and commanders of hundreds who had come from the campaign. And Moshe said to them, Have you kept all the women alive? Look, they are the ones who caused the children of Israel, through the word of Bilam, to trespass against Yahweh in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of Yahweh. And now kill every male among the little ones, and every woman who has known a man by lying with a man you shall kill. But keep alive for yourselves all the female children who have not known a man by lying with a man.
All right, thank you, Nate. Okay, Dale. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Dale, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, take us now from verse 19 to 40.
And you camp outside the camp 7 days. Whoever has killed any being and whoever has touched any slain, cleanse yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And cleanse every garment and every object of leather and all the work of goats' hair and every object of wood. And Eleazar the priest said to the men of the campaign who went to battle, This is the law of the Torah which Yahweh commanded Moshe. Only the gold and the silver, the bronze, the iron, the tin, and the lead, every object that passes through fire, you put through the fire, and it shall be clean. Only let it be cleansed with the water for uncleanness. And whatever does not pass through fire, you pass through water. And you shall wash your garments on the 7th day and be clean, and afterwards come into the camp. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Count up the plunder that was taken, of man and of beast, you and Eleazar the priest and the heads of the fathers of the congregation. And you shall divide the plunder into 2 parts between those who took part in the battle, who went out on the campaign, and all the congregation. And set aside a levy for Yahweh on the men of battle who went out on the campaign, 1 out of every 500 of man, and of the cattle, of the donkey, and of the sheep. Take it from their half and give it to Eleazar the priest as a contribution to Yahweh. And from the children of Israel's half you shall take 1 of every 50, of man, of the cattle, of the donkeys, and of the sheep, of all the livestock, and give them to the Levites according to the duty of the dwelling place of Yahweh. And Moshe and Eleazar the priest did as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And the booty remaining from the plunder which the people of the campaign had taken was 665,000 sheep, and 72,000 cattle, and 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 human beings, in all of women who had not known a man by lying with a man. And the half of the portion for those who went out on the campaign was in number 337,500 sheep. And the levy unto Yahweh of the sheep was 675. And the cattle were 36,000, of which the levy unto Yahweh was 72. And the donkeys were 30,500, of which the levy unto Yahweh was 61. And the human beings were 16,000, of which the levy unto Yahweh was 32 beings.
Amen. Okay, thank you, Dale. All right. Let's go ahead and bring up Shira. And perhaps one of you can go ask Mr. Hayes if there's a way to make this less cold. I know there's we have an air conditioning unit that's having some issues, and so we're supposed to keep it at a certain temperature so it'll function right, but some of us are becoming ice cubes. Okay. Not me, of course. I'm just having compassion for everybody else. Okay, now. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shira, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Shira is now going to take us from verse 41 to 54. Down there.
So Moshe gave the levy, which was the contribution unto Yahweh, to Eleazar the priest, as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And from the children of Israel's half, which Moshe divided from the men who campaigned. Now the half belonging to the congregation was 337,500 sheep, and 36,000 cattle, and 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 human beings. Then Moshe took from the children of Israel's half, one out of every 50, drawn from man and beast, and gave them to the Levites, who guarded the duty of the dwelling place of Yahweh, as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And the officers who were over thousands of the campaign, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, came near to Moshe, and they said to Moshe, "Your servants have taken account of the fighting men under our command, and not a man of us is missing. So we have brought an offering for Yahweh, what every man found of ornaments of gold, armlets and bracelets and signet rings and earrings and necklaces, to make atonement for ourselves before Yahweh." And Moshe and Eleazar the priest received the gold from them, all the fashioned ornaments, and all the gold of the offering that they presented to Yahweh from the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds was 16,750 shekels. The men of the campaign had taken spoil, every man for himself. And Moshe and Eleazar the priest received the gold from the commanders of thousands and of hundreds, and brought it into the tent of appointment as a remembrance for the children of Israel before Yahweh.
Excuse me. Thank you, Shira. Appreciate that. Okay, next up we have Candace. I'm going to move over to this side. There we go. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Candace, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Candace is going to take us now into chapter 32 and read verses 1 through 13.
And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had much livestock, a large number. And they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and saw that the place was a place for livestock. So the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spoke to Moshe and to Eleazar the priest and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Atoreth and Dibon and Yazer and Nimrah and Heshbon and Elali, and Sebam, and Nebo, and beyond, the land which Yahweh has stricken before the congregation of Israel, in a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. And they said, if we have found favor in your eyes, let this land be given to your servants as a possession, and do not let us pass over the Jordan. And Moshe said to the children of Gad and the children of Reuben, are your brothers to go into battle while you yourselves sit here? Now why do you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from passing over into the land which Yahweh has given them? Thus your fathers did when I sent them away from Qodesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the Wadi Escal and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, so that they did not go into the land which Yahweh had given them. Then the displeasure of Yahweh burned on that day, and he swore an oath saying, not one of the men who came up from Mitzrayim from 20 years old and above is to see the land of which I swore to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, because they did not follow me completely, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Quezonite, and Yehoshua, son of Nun, for they had followed Yahweh completely. So the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until all the generation that had done evil in the eyes of Yahweh was destroyed.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Candace. Okay, next up is Sarah Beth. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 14 to 28.
And see, you have risen in your father's place, an increase of men, sinners, to add still more the burning displeasure of Yahweh against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he shall once again leave them in the wilderness, and you shall destroy all these people. Then they came near to him and said, let us build sheep enclosures here for our livestock, and cities for our little ones. But let us ourselves be armed, hastening before the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones shall dwell in the walled cities because of the inhabitants of the land. And we shall not return to our homes until every one of the children of Israel has received his inheritance. For we shall not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this eastern side of the Jordan. And Moshe said to them, if you make this promise, if you arm yourselves before Yahweh for battle, and all your armies and all your armed ones pass over the Jordan before Yahweh until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land has been subdued before Yahweh, then afterward you shall return and be guiltless before Yahweh and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before Yahweh. But if you do not do so, then see, you shall sin against Yahweh, and know your sin is going to find you out. Build cities for your little ones and enclosures for your sheep, and do what you have promised. And the children of Gad and the children of the children of Reuben spoke to Moshe, saying, your servants are going to do as my master commands. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our livestock are going to be there in the cities of Gilead. But your servants are passing over, every armed one of the army, before Yahweh, to battle, as my master says. And Moshe gave command concerning them to Eleazar the priest, to Yehoshua son of Nun, and to the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you. Brianna? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Brianna, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 29 to 42.
And Moshe said to them, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben pass over the Jordan with you, every man armed for battle before Yahweh, and the land has been subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead as a possession. But if they do not pass over armed with you, then they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. Then the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, as Yahweh has said to your servants, so we do. We ourselves are passing over armed before Yahweh into the land of Canaan, but the possession of our inheritance remains with us beyond the Jordan. So Moshe gave the children of Gad to the children of Reuben, and to half the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and the reign of Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, and the reign of Og, sovereign of Bashan, the land with its cities within the borders, the cities of the land round about. And the children of Gad built Divon, and Ataroth, and Arer, and Atrath, Shofan, Yazer, and Yagbaha, and Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, walled cities and enclosures for sheep. And the children of Reuben built Heshbon, and Elalah, and Kiriathaim, Nebo, and Balal, Meon, the names being changed, and Shibmah, and they gave other names to the cities which they built. And the sons of Machir, son of Manasseh, went to Gilead and took it, and disposed the Amorites who were in it. So Moshe gave Gilead to Machir, son of Manasseh, and he dwelt in it. And Yair, son of Manasseh, went and took its small towns, and called them Hawath Yair. And Novah went and took Kenath and its villages, and he went and called it Novah after his own name.
Good job, darling. Appreciate that. Yeah. Good job. Good job. Those aren't easy names. All right. I get the daughter, and then I get the mother. All right. Here we go. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebbe and Julie, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, now you can take us into chapter 33 and read verses 1 through 16.
Okay. These are the departures of the children of Israel who went out of the land of Mitzrayim by their divisions under the hand of Moshe and Aharon. And Moshe wrote down the starting points of their departures at the mouth of Yahweh, and these are their departures according to their starting points. So they departed from Ramses in the first new moon, on the 15th day of the first new moon, on the morrow of the Pesach. The children of Israel went out with boldness before the eyes of all the Mitzrites. And the Mitzrites were burying all their firstborn, whom Yahweh had stricken among them. Also on their mighty ones Yahweh had executed judgments. Then the children of Israel departed from Ramses and camped at Sukkot. And they departed from Sukkot and camped at Etham, which is on the edge of the wilderness. And they departed from Etham and turned back to Pi-Hahirot, which is east of Baal Zephon. And they camped near Migdol. And they departed from before Hahirot and passed over through the midst of the sea into the wilderness. Went 3 days' journey in the wilderness of Etham and camped at Marah. And they departed from Marah and came to Elim. And at Elim were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, so they camped there. And they departed from Elim and camped by the Sea of Reeds. And they departed from the Sea of Reeds and camped in the wilderness of Sin. And they departed from the wilderness of Sin and camped at Dophkah. Up to where? 16. And they departed from Dophkah and camped at Alush. And they departed from Alush and camped at Rephidim. And there was no water for the people to drink. And they departed from Rephidim and camped in the wilderness of Sinai. And they departed from the wilderness of Sinai and camped at Kibroth Hattaawah.
Amen. Amen. Oh, you got a tough one here. Lots of names of cities. You ready for this? All right. Okay, and actually, I have it in my notes that we skip to verse 38. Isn't that nice? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shannon, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. But it's set apart one, bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. So with all of these departures, and we covered really the important ones. We got basically to Sinai, etc. We're going to actually skip now to verse 38 and read to verse 56, which is the end of the chapter. 38, right there. To the end of the chapter.
Okay. Okay. Then Aharon the priest went up to Mount Hor at the mouth of Yahweh, and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Mitzrayim on the first day of the 5th new moon. Now Aharon was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor, and the sovereign of Arad the Canaanite, who dwelt in the south in the land of Canaan, heard of the coming of the children of Israel. So they departed from Mount Hor and camped at Salmona, and they departed from Salmona and camped at Punan, and they departed from Punan and camped at Oboth, and they departed from Oboth and camped at Abiram at the border of Moab, and they departed from Eam and camped at Dibon-Gad, and they departed from Dibon-Gad and camped at Almon-Dibalathema, and they departed from Almon-Dibalathema and camped in the mountains of Abiram before Nebo. And they departed from the mountains of Abiram and camped in the desert plains of Moab by the Jordan of Jericho. And they camped by the Jordan from Beth Yeshimoth as far as the Abel Shittim in the desert plains of Moab. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the desert plains of Moab by the Jordan of Jericho, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When you have passed over the Jordan to the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and shall destroy all their engraved stones, and shall destroy all their molded images, and lay waste all their high places. And you shall possess the land and dwell in it. For I have given you the land to possess. And you shall divide the land by lot as an inheritance among your clans. To the larger you give a larger inheritance, and to the smaller you give a smaller inheritance. Wherever the lot falls to anyone that is his, you inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. And if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall be that those whom you let remain shall be pricks in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall trouble you in the land where you dwell. And it shall be that I do to you as I thought to do to them.
Amen, amen. Excellent job. Okay, next up, Angelia. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Angelia, who's come down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Angelia is going to take us now to chapter 34 and read verses 1 through 15. And I'm going to need 2 more readers, other than the 2 that are there. 2 more. Here we go. Okay, 1 through 15.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Command the children of Israel and say to them, When you come into the land of Canaan, this is the land which falls to you as an inheritance, the land of Canaan to its boundaries. Then your southern border shall be from the wilderness of Sin along the border of Edom, and your southern border shall be eastward from the end of the Salt Sea. Then your border shall turn from the southern side of the ascent of Akrabim, continue to Sin, and be on the south of Kadesh Barnea, and it shall go on to Hatzaradar, and continue to Atzmon. And the border shall turn from Atzmon to the Wadi of Mitzrayim, and it shall end at the sea. As for the western border, you shall have the great sea for a border. This is your western border. And this is your northern border. From the great sea, you mark out your borderline to Mount Hor. From Mount Hor, you mark out your border to the entrance of Hamath. And the edge of the border shall be toward Zedad. And the border shall proceed to Ziphron, and it shall end at Hatzar-Enan. This is your northern border. And you shall mark out your eastern border from Hatzar-Enan to Shepham. And the border shall go down from Shepham to Riblah on the east side of the Ayin, and the border shall go down and reach to the eastern side of the Sea of Kinnereth. And the border shall go down along the Jordan, and it shall end at the Salt Sea. This is your land with its surrounding boundaries. And Moshe commanded the children of Israel, saying, This is the land which you inherit by lot, which Yahweh has commanded to give to the 9 tribes and to the half-tribe. For the tribe of the children of Reuben, according to the house of their fathers, and the tribe of the children of Gad, according to the house of their fathers, have received their inheritance, and the half-tribe of Manasseh has received its inheritance. The 2 tribes and the half-tribe have received their inheritance beyond the Jordan of Jericho, eastward, toward the sunrise.
Amen, amen. Okay, thank you. Whoops. Okay, thank you, Angelia. Okay, Tanis, come on up. And I forgot my sheets here. This is what happens when I'm writing notes at the same time that I'm getting ready to come up. Okay, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Tanis, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us from verse 16 to the end of the chapter. Up here. Wait, oh no, you're right. Here.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, These are the names of the men who divide the land among you as an inheritance: Eleazar the priest, and Yehoshua son of Nun. And take 1 leader of every tribe to divide the land for the inheritance. And these are the names of the men from the tribe of Yehuda: Caleb, son of Yefuneh. And from the tribe of the children of Shimon, Shemuel, son of Ammihud. From the tribe of Benjamin, Elidad, son of Kislon. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Dan, Bukai, son of Yogli. From the sons of Yosef, a leader from the tribe of the children of Manasseh, Haniel, son of Ephod. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Ephraim, Kemuel, son of Shiftan. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Zebulun, Elitzaphan, son of Parnak. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Issachar, Paltiel, son of Azan. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Asher, Ahiyud, son of Shalomi. And a leader from the tribe of the children of Naphtali, Pediel, son of Ammihud. These are the ones Yahweh commanded to divide the inheritance among the children of Israel in the land of Canaan. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe.
That's it. End of the chapter.
Oh,
Perfect. Thank you. Very good. Hey, you pronounced those names really well. Great job.
thank you, sir.
Excellent. Okay. Good job, Tanis. Okay, next up is Chuck. He's going to take us into chapter 35. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Chuck, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Chuck, take us from chapter 35, verse 1 through 15.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the desert plains of Moab by the Jordan of Jericho, saying, Command the children of Israel that they shall give the Levites cities to dwell in from the inheritance of their possession. Also give the Levites open land around the cities, and they shall have the cities to dwell in, and their open land for their cattle, and for their herds, and for all of their livestock. And the open land of the cities which you give the Levites are from the wall of the city toward 1,000 cubits all around. And you shall measure outside the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, and on the south side 2,000 cubits, and on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits. And the city is in the middle. This is to them open land for the cities. And the cities which you give to the Levites are the 6 cities of refuge, which you give to the manslayer to flee to, and to these you add 42 cities. All the cities which you give to the Levites are 48, these with their open land. And the cities which you give are from the possession of the children of Israel. From the larger tribe you give many. From the smaller you give few. Each one gives some of its cities to the Levites in proportion to the inheritance that each inherits. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When you pass over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall choose cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the manslayer who struck someone mistakenly shall flee there. And they shall be cities of refuge for you from the ravager, and the manslayer is not to die until he stands before the congregation for right ruling. And of the cities which you give, 6 are to be cities of refuge. Give 3 cities beyond the Jordan, and give 3 cities in the land of Canaan as cities of refuge.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, did you stop in 14? That's 15. Oh, you didn't read verse 15. Come up here, you got to read one more verse. Not going to let you get away with that. I was distracted writing notes again. Here you go, one more verse.
These 6 cities are for refuge for the children of Israel, and for the sojourner, and for the settler in their midst, for anyone who mistakenly strikes someone to flee there.
Amen. Okay, now you're done. All right, what a blessing. We're going to close out with Rebbetzin, Joanne, and Rabbi Tom. So we got the Mitchells here to close us out for it. Okay, wonderful. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebbetzin, Joanne, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 16 to verse 34, which is the end of the chapter.
But if he has strucken him with any instrument of iron, so that he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer shall certainly be put to death. And if he has strucken him with a stone in the hand, by which one dies, he does die. He is a murderer. The murderer shall certainly be put to death. Or if he strucken him with a wooden instrument that could kill, and he does die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall certainly be put to death. The revenge of blood himself puts the murderer to death. When he meets him, he puts him to death. And if he thrusts him through in the hatred, or throws an object at him while lying in wait so that he dies, or in enmity he strikes him with his hand so that he dies, the one who struck him shall certainly be put to death, for he is a murderer. The revenger of blood puts the murderer to death when he meets him. But if he pushes him suddenly without enmity, or throws an object at him without lying in wait, or uses a stone by which a man could die, throwing it at him without seeing him, or so that he dies, while he was not his enemy or seeking him harm. Then the congregation shall judge between him who struck someone, the revenger of blood, according to these right rulings. And the congregation shall rescue the manslayer from the hand of the revenger of blood, and the congregation shall return him to the city of refuge where he had fled, and he shall remain there until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the set-apart oil. But if the manslayer at any time goes outside the limits of the city of refuge where he fled, and the revenger of blood finds him outside the limits of the city of refuge, and the revenger of blood executes the manslayer, he is not guilty of blood, because he should have remained in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the manslayer is to return to the land of his possession. And these shall be for the law of right ruling to you throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Whoever strikes a being, the murderer shall be executed by the mouth of the witness. But one witness does not bear witness against someone to die. And take no ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death, but he shall certainly be put to death. And take no ransom for him who has fled to his city of refuge to return to dwell in the land before the death of the priest. And do not profane the land where you are, for blood profanes the land, and the land is not pardoned for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. And do not defile the land which you inhabit, in the midst of which I dwell. For I, Yahweh, am dwelling in the midst of the children of Israel.
Amen. Okay, thank you, Rebbetzin Joanne. All right, Rabbi Tom's going to close us out by reading chapter 36. And you can read the whole chapter. And this will be not only the last reading for the night, it'll also be the last reading for the book of Bimidbar, the book of Numbers. Amen. And I think it fitting that you started us and now you're closing us. You did the first reading and now you're doing the last reading. All right, so go ahead now and we're going to give you this and we'll have you read chapter 36.
Yes, sir. And the heads of the fathers of the clans of the children of Gilad, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, of the clans of the sons of Joseph, came near and spoke before Moshe and before the leaders, the heads of the fathers of the children of Israel, and said, Yahweh commanded my master to give the land as an inheritance by lot to the children of Israel. And my master was commanded by Yahweh to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters. Now, if they are married to any of the sons of the other tribes of the children of Israel, then their inheritance shall be taken from the inheritance of our fathers, and shall be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry, and taken from the lot of our inheritance. And if the Yovel of the children of Israel takes place, then their inheritance shall be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry, and their inheritance taken away from the inheritance of the tribe of our fathers. And Moshe commanded the children of Israel according to the word of Yahweh, saying, What the tribe of the sons of Joseph speaks is right. This is the word which Yahweh has commanded for the daughters of Zelophehad, saying, Let them marry who is good in their eyes, but let them marry only within the clan of their father's tribe. And the inheritance of the children of Israel is not to change hands from tribe to tribe, for every one of the children of Israel is to cling to the inheritance of the tribe of his fathers. And every daughter possessing an inheritance in any tribe of the children of Israel is to be the wife of one of the clan of her father's tribe, so that the children of Israel possess each the inheritance of his fathers. Thus, the inheritance is not to change hands from one tribe to another, but every tribe of the children of Israel is to cling to its own inheritance. As Yahweh commanded Moshe, so did the daughters of Zelophehad. For Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, and Milcah, and Noach, the daughters of Zelophehad, were married to the sons of their father's brothers, and they were married into the clans of the children of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of their father's clan. Now these are the clans and the right rulings which Yahweh commanded the children of Israel by the hand of Moshe in the desert plains of Moab by the Yarden of Jericho.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. Thank you to all the readers. No, we can close that. Yep, appreciate it. All right. We have the closing blessing. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. Let me get my stand back here again. Amen. Okay, we finished the book, and what do we say? Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek, which means be strong, and may we be strengthened. Amen. Amen. That's a tradition. I think it's a good one. Excellent. All right, so real quickly, let me just go through a reminder of some of the announcements, because some of the people who are not online before, just to kind of remind us of some of the things that are coming up, and then we'll go into the discussion. How many do we have on there, Manny? 252? Wow. And by the way, those of you that are online, if you've not done so, if you could subscribe, that would be great. If you would hit the like button, that'd be awesome as well, because subscribing does help us to become more likely to pop up in sidebars as the way YouTube's metrics work, et cetera, et cetera. And we would like to be able to reach as many people with this. If you think this is useful, of course, if you don't, then don't bother. You know. Okay. Some of you are still reeling from the way I address people and the way I talk from the beginning of this whole study. Look, I think we all have been coddled enough. That doesn't mean I don't love you. I think that it's time that everybody just hears it straight. And I think that we should appreciate hearing it straight, because after all, if you don't want to hear it straight, there's 5,000 other places for you to go where they'll be very happy to say whatever you want to hear. And to make you feel good, and you can go to Houston and go to Olstein's place. He'll be very happy to tell you how wonderful you are and how fantastic things are, okay? But if you want to hear what you need, and not necessarily what you want, maybe you might be getting some of that here, okay? Because you might need to hear some of the straight talk. All right, so announcements. So let's not forget that this Friday, okay, we're going to be doing Erev Shabbat here at 6:30, and we'll have dinner at 6:30, then Rosh Chodesh 8 o'clock. We're going to be also starting our men's and women's classes on Shabbat after the Oneg, and that will be on this coming Saturday. It'll be an every other week thing. Of course, our Torah study, for those of you that may be new, we do this every week, and you're all welcome to come here on YouTube and follow along with us. We also, by the way, stream our service on Shabbat. We also have lots of other things that we post, as well as the teachings and the afterburns, which is the sort of the Q&A after the teachings, as well as a little in-focus piece that sort of gets popped out of a teaching. And we have more programming that we're planning to do and hoping to do coming up in the near future, including maybe a broadcast program put together by the youth, which I think would be great. We'll have a little Gadol class sort of broadcast that we might start to put together, okay? So look forward to that. All of the youth just panicked. No, no reason to panic. Look, we have a lot of you already running cameras and running the sound booth and running the video booth, so there's no reason why you can't, guys, you can't, I think you can produce your own stuff. We'll work together. We'll work with Rebbetzin Julie, who's the youth director, and we'll come up with some really good stuff, okay? All right. Okay, exciting. All right. Okay, then a reminder that we do have a leadership meeting on the 18th, which is Sunday, as well as then we come up to a Labor Day weekend. We're doing our Congregational yard sale, which is specifically being done for the raising of funds for the academy. And we're very excited that we have a new school started. It has almost 20 children already scheduled in it, I think. It's got registered about 20 children. Is that about right, Evie? What do we got? Pretty close to 20, about 18 or 20 children. Our very first semester with running a school, so that's very exciting. Okay. Okay, let's see. Then, of course, we have the fall feasts. You've got trumpets on the 30th of September, Yom Kippur on October 9th, and then Sukkot, October 13th through 22nd, over at Black Mountain, North Carolina. The paperwork for that is on the MTOI.org website. Okay, if you're here locally, we may still have some paper on the back with the registration forms. All right, we have over 150 people already registered. So that's very exciting. Enough of the announcements. Let's get into this discussion because, after all, there was really nothing to cover, so we can just move on. All right, I got a lot of things to say. I'm sure you have a lot of things to say as well. Let me kind of go through the ground rules here. All right? This discussion is going to be number one, first thing is that we're looking for what can you get out of this Torah portion that can help you in your walk. All right, that's been our theme. Looking at the Torah portion to see what you can glean from it that will help you in your journey forward. Your journey from where you are into the kingdom. Okay? We're going to try to start at the beginning in chapter 30 and work our way to the end of the book of Numbers here, the end of chapter 36. And so that's number one. Number two, okay, is that we're looking for both comments and questions, and that's fine. And if a question comes up and people want to jump in on the question, that's fine too. Let's just be respectful and polite, especially you guys on YouTube. All right. This is a congregational and organizational study. You are all guests and welcome to be here if you're not part of the group. We are glad you're here. Just be respectful that you're here as visitors and guests of an organized study. Okay? It's open to the public, yes, but it's not just an open forum to start running your own agendas or whatever else you might want to do. Hopefully not too much of that is going on. All right? Okay, that being said, we're going to begin. Okay, we have Owen bringing around the mic, and Rabbi Tom's going to start us off. After all, he started us off on the readings. Why not start us off on the comments?
I just have a question, if I may, please.
Sure.
Could we say that there's a difference between oaths and vows?
In what way?
Well, in the way they have to be fulfilled, or the way that they're made. Like Yipta took a vow that if he got a victory, that he would sacrifice the first thing that came out of his house. But
I knew somebody would bring that up.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Somebody was going to bring it up. Look, there's in the vows chapter here, and it's a very important chapter because it teaches us some really important principles as we are looking in that chapter and understanding how this whole oaths thing sort of works. Chapter 30 starts dealing with these things, and the point is that these are, as Yahweh lives type vows. Okay, not just loudmouth, spouting off and that kind of thing, but it's as Yahweh lives type stuff. Now, as far as the event that you're talking about, I have not looked at that event in a while, like all the details to break it down and see what was going on there and understand the ramifications. I know that the sages have their own sort of idea of what really happened and whether or not she was cut up or whatever it was that was done. And so we're not going to get into that today. There's some really important points we can glean, though. And so this is talking about as not like if I was to contract or make an oath between myself and somebody, but this is where we're invoking Yahweh's authority in it. It's one of those as Yahweh lives type of things. Yahweh is my witness. This is my vow. This is one of those like you're praying, you say, Father, if you would just do this thing for me, I promise to go and do this other thing. That's one of those Yahweh-directed vows. Okay? And this is where it now becomes the important part is that if you have vertical structure, if there's actually an authority structure in place, like it talks about here, a father or a husband, that they have authority in that structure to annul the vow, which is something that, ladies, you should take full advantage of and not just be doing what you're going to do without making sure that there's somebody there to say, maybe that's not a good idea. Now, I may open up a little can of worms here, but you have to understand, this is exactly what happened pretty much. Now, wait, before I go there, let me kind of package this. It doesn't say what I'm about to say, but it's implied there. If you say what you say, ladies, and the husband or the man, I know some of you are freaking out going, well, what if I don't have a husband or a father? I'll get to that in a minute. Don't worry about it. Okay? But ladies, if you say what you say and the husband or the father who's involved hears it, knows it, and allows it, it doesn't just stand. The responsibility now for it turns over to him. That's the authority structure. Now, if that's the case, can you not also see what happened to Adam? Chava was making all kinds of little things going on, and Adam was over there and watching the whole thing happen. And guess who gets the brunt of the punishment? Adam, because he was the authority that should have said, excuse me, hold on, time out. Why are you talking to my wife? I'm right here. By the way, that's something that also happens, ladies. Don't be talking to other men and other people where you're going to have authority structures that somehow usurps the authority of your own husband or your father or the leadership that you might be under. Okay, let's be careful with that. By the way, this is the same thing for leadership. Leadership must recognize that they can't usurp the husband's role. If a wife comes up to you and a woman who's married comes up to you and they say blah, 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 that's when you say, well, what does your husband think? Why don't you go talk to him, make sure that the husband's involved, because after all, you would otherwise be usurping. Now, there are some other tricky points to this, because what if you're covenanted and he's not? In that case, there's a limited authority of the leadership to help guide you with Torah-based principles on how you may address things, but really, there's only a limited amount of authority there because you are still married. Whether they're covenanted or not with Yahweh, they're covenanted with you. And so leadership must respect those boundaries. Because some of the ladies will come to me sometimes hoping that I can somehow override that in some way, and I can't. Okay? I can't have authority and invoke or insert my authority into what's going on between you and your husband. I can simply give you Torah-based principles and encouragement on how you might handle it from a counseling point of view. For all those of you that are uncovered, I believe, this is, I believe, a Deuteronomy 17 type decision, okay, where when you don't know what else to do, by the way, we have lots of those going on in this Torah portion. Like, for example, when it says that they were to take the inheritance and divide it up. Doesn't say how to divide it up. Doesn't say percentages. It says the larger gets more, the smaller gets less. Who decides? The leadership. It's actually said, Eleazar, Moshe, etc., they were going to divide it up. Or Eleazar and Joshua, we're going to divide it up. And by the way, you notice what it said, you're going to get what you get and you're not going to argue or whine or complain about it. Okay? You get what you get. The leadership was, now they did bring in the other leaders of the tribes, and it tells you their names, and said, okay, we're going to divide this up. We didn't say, let's go walk around and you tell me which land you want. It's not like going to a realtor to go and take and show you some properties to see which one you want. Okay, the only tribes that got sort of what they wanted was Gad and Reuben. But I think they paid a price ultimately, and for choosing to be outside the camp, so to speak. They didn't want to cross over the Jordan. Now, they did eventually get permission for it, but just remember, Yahweh sometimes allows you to do dumb things. And that, I think, was a foolish decision, not to cross over the Jordan. But other than that, the rest of the tribes, the rest of them had to get what the leadership decided they would get. Okay? So now when it comes to this vow thing, Deuteronomy 17 says when there's an issue that you don't know what to do, you go to the leadership. The leadership then is forced to take the Torah-based understanding that they have and try to interpret the word the best they can so that they can then make a decision. You see this with the inheritance going on with Moses. Moses says, okay, according to his understanding of Torah, we will then require that they marry within their clan so the inheritance isn't lost. We see these kind of inspired decisions being made. Understanding the fullness of the intent when Yahweh had said that they get an inheritance. Well, you're not going to find a way around that by marrying them and then taking away the inheritance. Okay? So, with the ladies, so the decision that we had made was that we interpret Scripture to give you the opportunity to still have coverage, because it says that the widows, now notice it doesn't say that they don't have a chance to have a covering. It says that if you are widowed, that the decisions that you had made, if your husband at that time did not disavow it or annul it, you're stuck with that stuff. But what about all the decisions you're going to make going forward now that you don't have a husband, now that you're a widow? You know, it seems that Torah makes it very clear that in Yahweh's heart, one of the highest levels of space in his heart are the widows and the orphans. He cares greatly for the widows. And the widows, by the way, can also be just those that either never did get married, but they're now older. He has a very great spot and warmth for the gray-headed, he calls them. The older people in the community, the elders, so to speak, elder by age. And so, should they not also have a covering? And so the ministry has offered to be available to do that. But that's an agreed upon relationship, not a default one. If you want that, you'd have to contact the leadership and ask, would you be willing to do this for me? Because the responsibility and burden that a husband or father would have when it comes to, saying yes or no to a vow is great. And so leadership is not obligated to do it. Okay? It's also why we have in the mikvah declarations, because of all this mess in chapter 30, there are a lot of vows you would have made that were not when you were understanding Yahweh and Yeshua. And so we added a few years ago an 8th declaration. It's actually number 7 in the order, but we inserted it into the list that we would ask Yahweh to annul as our ultimate covering any and all agreements that we may have made purposely or inadvertently or accidentally or any kind of way we did it that are not in alignment with him. Because we do all kinds of dumb things before we know what we're doing. Remember, these instructions in chapter 30 for covenanted people. But what if you did these things when you weren't covenanted yet and you didn't know better? So that's why we added that to the thing that again, this is a Deuteronomy type decision. It's not a Torah instruction specifically that says to do it this way. We just had to go with what can we glean out of Torah to help us in understanding how to handle a situation. Okay? By the way, for all those of you that have Talmud allergies or angst or anger, and I'm not endorsing it, I'm not for it, I'm not encouraging you to go read it, I'm simply saying that's all it is the sages of the Great Assembly, the leadership in the Jewish community at the time were, those who came back from Babylon, who got together and they said, we've got a lot of things that are going on that Torah doesn't necessarily explicitly lay out how to handle, and so we're going to argue about it and come up with policy. Which, by the way, doesn't mean that their policy is correct, but it was appropriate to whatever degree culturally where they were in their time, in the place, and in the experience of their journey. Because remember, they had just journeyed out of Babylon. They had all kinds of other things happening. They had to, the context of the framework of where they were in time, space, meaning where they lived and what was going on in their lives, they made the decisions as best they could. Okay, and that's all the documentation is. So don't be afraid of it, but that doesn't mean it holds authority over you today. It's just something that you need to understand they did for their group of people that they had authority over. Wow, that was a long-winded way to deal with this vows thing, okay? But understand, the vows thing is very important because it really helps us understand the vital role of structure and authority. The role of the father and the role of the husband. Men, this is not all about the ladies. Some of the men are all checked out going, yeah, I know, I got authority, I better pay attention. Men, this is important. You need to step up and do your role as a husband or a father. Because if you don't, it stands. And if it stands, basically not only does the person who said it, your daughter or your wife, but you own that you allowed it. I'm going to guess that there may be a double little whammy for you for that, just like for the teacher. The burden of responsibility on the one that had the authority to do or not do. Is that fair? I mean, that's just my guess. So guys, own it. Okay, you have an important role. Own it. Ladies, let them know what you're doing. Okay, I'm talking about when you're vowing and praying and saying and making commitments to your Father in heaven. Now, you may think, well, I know what I'm doing. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Do you want to take the risk? This is what chapter 30 is all about. Okay, let's more questions. Okay, Candace?
Rabbi, I was wondering, with the widow and the divorced woman, if they went back to live in their father's house, would their father then resume being their covering?
Yes, but you have to remember we also have to deal with today whether or not the father that you're going back to is covenanted. Because if he's not covenanted, he's not going to understand anything you're doing anyway. So in which case, if you are an adult who's been out of the house and you're widowed or divorced and you don't have a covering and you happen to move back into your father's house, I would still make sure there's somebody who's covenanted that can help you understand whether or not you did something you shouldn't have done or you made a commitment you shouldn't have made. Okay? But yes, if you're going to walk back into your father's house, they do have a certain amount of authority. You're now in their house. All right? Okay, anybody else? And you can go past chapter 30 if you'd like. Okay, Shira? Otherwise, I've got about 25 things I could talk about, so.
Thank you, Rabbi. This whole, I have a couple of comments. First of all, in chapter 31, it really grabbed me, this battle. And Yahweh says, take vengeance on the Midianites for what they did to you guys.
Bring the mic up.
He says, take vengeance on the Midianites for what they did to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's very interesting. I can't recall any other battle where there was 1,000 from each tribe taken for the army, 12,000 in all. And I understand that biblically often the number 12 represents authority. And so I had this thought, like, Yahweh says, vengeance is mine, and Yisrael is my hammer, my authority, taken on the Israelites. And I could go on, but I thought of a number of different applications if we are Israel. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, I liked it. That sounded fine.
But this is really cool. This was a personal thing. These officers that went and kept alive the women of Midian, and Moshe was really upset because they really hadn't, it was only a half-hearted repentance. They had an emotional attachment. Probably a number of them had lain with these women in the orgies. And I personally have just been dealing with this week, Father granting me a measure of victory over old Christian doctrines that I had laid down theologically, I had laid down mentally. I totally agreed with everything Rabbi taught, but Father uncovered that I had an emotional attachment to a doctrine or two, and I thank him for shining the light on that. And I really got a huge freedom, a deliverance from some stuff that's making a big difference in my life. So I'm just seeing that we really have to lay down not just the past sins or the habits or the deeds, but let Father uncover the emotional attachments to the bad doctrines or the past attachments or the past sins.
Amen. Amen. Appreciate that very much. By the way, hopefully somebody noticed in chapter 31, this is part of the way Yahweh is kind of getting in their face indirectly about what happened when they spied the land. Nobody was missing. Nobody died. He wanted to show them, see, when you do it the way I tell you to do it, look what happens. You go out to battle, and in chapter 31 and in verse 49, it says, and they said to Moshe, your servants have taken account of the fighting men under our command, and not a man of us is missing. Yeah, that normally happens when you go out to war with swords and bows and arrows and shields and stuff. Not a man missing. See, that's Yahweh saying, see, this is what would have happened had you listened to me. Why would you not listen to me? Were you all afraid? What were you afraid of? Not a man was missing. All right, who's next? Somebody had a hand up? Okay. Candace?
This whole portion was full of meat for me. In chapter 31, and I noticed that they killed Balaam, and so I looked up a scripture in Revelations 2 and 14, and what he actually did was he taught them to get the Israelites to eat food offered to idols as well as to commit whoring. And so in that way, I see that, there's more than one way to commit whoring. Just giving, maybe not putting Yahweh first in our life. That would be a type of whoring. And that I can see that, that there have been times like that in my own life. And so I'm grateful he brought me here because it's getting so much better for me spiritually. Another thing that I was seeing in that 31st chapter was that not only was the priest provided for the from the children of Israel, but that the children of Israel also provided for the Levites to take care of the temple, which not only should we take care of you, but we should take care of like Manny and David Hayes and those, because they're a type of a Levite, even though they're not maybe of the tribe of Levi, but they help to take care of things around here.
Okay, I think that you have two different structures there, okay? The structure that you had in the Levitical temple setup was generally everything was brought to the Levites, and the Levites took care of the high priest. Okay, we don't have that structure today, right? Today we have employees, we have staff. We don't have this kind of a structure. People can have their own inheritances even though they work, as employees. I'm the one without an inheritance. So I'm just saying, so yes, we do take care of them, but we have a totally different structure here. Okay? As a matter of fact, that's what the book of Malachi addresses, is that the Levites were not taking a tithe of what they received and giving it to the high priests. The Kohanim were being neglected. So it's not like we want to all of a sudden start redirecting what we're sending to staff here. Now, they should be given appreciation, thanks, seeing if they have needs, etc. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying understand that the scriptural structure is actually reversed to what we do today in terms of leadership and running something, because that was for the temple. And everything was given actually to the Levite, and the Levite was to give it then to the high priest. Now, in this particular case, he specifically tells them what to give to the Kohanes and what to give to the Levites. Because this is in the beginning when they're doing what? They're about to get their inheritances. And he wanted to make sure that as you go about this, that the Levites have what they need to start, to launch into this new place and do the work of service of the temple of the children of Israel. Okay? And serving that need. So let's not get that confused.
Oh, I wasn't confused.
Okay.
I was just it's just similar. Okay.
Yeah, but I know, I don't want anybody to think that all of a sudden everybody's going to be like taking the tithes and offerings, start handing them to other people and the staff and everything else, because that's not the way it works.
Okay. In chapter 32, when the children of Reuben and Gad wanted to live outside the camp,
Yes.
and Moses was, what, are you going to let your brothers go to battle without you? You know, and I think about back, what is it, almost a year ago, when Beth Shalom had all that problem that rose up, and there were those of us that stood in the gap with you, and while there were others that left. I see that kind of like that what are we going to do, not stand up for our brothers and sisters when they're being fired at? What if it was me and I was being fired at? I wouldn't want everybody to run and duck tail. I would want people to stand up for me.
Amen.
And then in 33, the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years because Yahweh had to drive out their unbelief and the unbelievers from them. He had to not only drive out the unbelief, he also had to get them to line up with his righteousness. In the same way, Yahweh has us in a wilderness to remove the unbelief and unrighteousness from our lives. How would I have learned to trust Yahweh had I not gone through the great difficulties in my own personal life? I've learned to trust him and walk in his ways, and my feet that were once crooked and walked in sin have now become straight and does their best to avoid sin. So that's what I've seen in there. And then in chapter 35, I have a question. No, I have one more comment for that 34. That if I allow any sin to remain, that sin along with others will rise up and overcome me. That's what I've seen in it for me. And in 35, I have a question, okay? There has to be 2 witnesses for a crime. And today we have evidence that links a person to a crime. Is that evidence considered a witness against the person who commits a crime in Yahweh's eyes?
Okay, so yeah, today we have a whole different level of forensic ability to gather evidence that absolutely links to somebody. I mean, for example, there could be, in this modern age, video footage of the event. That's obviously a witness. If there is hair or skin or blood that links somebody that they can prove is theirs, that's evidence. Okay? So yes, these things end up being witnesses against. But remember, in the society they were at, a person would accuse. Number one, you had an accuser. They would then go out to gather if there was witnesses that agreed with the accusing that the accuser was making, the accusation the accuser made. And then there had to be the understanding that, which we certainly don't have today, that if it's a false accusation, what you accuse then comes back on you. The penalty that would have happened to the one you accused comes back on you. This is big. So that's one of the differences that we have today. But yes, in a non-direct way, there's lots of things that we have today because of technology that could be considered equally legitimate witnesses as just having 2 people. Actually, in some ways, better. You can have 2 people claim the same thing and they end up being false witnesses, but you don't know they're being false, but then you have actual factual evidence, like a videotape or something that shows the event. You say, okay, but wait, I've got this tape that shows you doing it. Okay? And that's kind of a whole different thing. All right, thank you for your comments and questions. Okay, anybody else? Okay, coming on to this side. Okay, Angelia.
My question is from chapter 35 in verse 33.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of tying it into, I think it's the Heart of the Matter teaching, either 20 or 21, where you mentioned that Brad Scott feels like the Torah holds the universe together, I think.
Well, no, the Jews actually believe that Torah holds the
okay.
universe together.
Okay.
He may agree with that, but that's
right. Okay.
What I was saying. Yeah.
In this, it says, the land is not pardoned for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. But in today's world, is this just exclusive to the person who shed the blood on the land, or can we heal the land, or can we keep it from destruction still by keeping Torah, or how does that affect us today?
Okay, this has no effect on us today because this is talking about the corporate nation of Israel in the specific land that actually in this chapters that we read today, the boundaries were described, okay? So this is, with all law, you have certain things that are important. You have jurisdiction. Okay, where does that law apply? The jurisdiction of these laws is the land of Israel described in these chapters as the boundaries of the space that they were to dwell in as their inheritance. And then you have to say, well, who do the laws apply to? They apply to Israel as a nation in that land. We are not Israel as a nation in that land. So there's nothing that we can do to apply any of this today. Okay? All right, who's next? Okay, Sarah Beth?
First of all, commenting on the covering, thank you for being my covering and
You're welcome.
doing that for the widows and orphans. In a comment, flip side to what Shira said, emotional attachments to the doctrines and stuff. I'm thanking Abba for showing me places where I didn't emotionally attach, where I should have. That the flip can be just as true. In chapter 31, two things is kind of pointed out, but not specifically. They went to avenge what had happened, and then they brought back they didn't even learn the lesson. They didn't get the point. And how many times do we do that? I can almost hear your voice going, really? Again? And then comment that this is about what happened with Midian or the problem with the plague, and Phineas gets to lead the charge, who was the hero from before. It seems that they're connected.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of things that are happening in here, including the things that you pointed out, but you also have another thing in verse 50 where it talks about that they went to give things to make atonement. And you think, what do they make an atonement for? Well, they're showing appreciation, in other words, a restoration of relationship, that there was nobody missing, but they also recognize that they blew it to some degree. They did what they were told, but they didn't do what they were told, which really, I wrote that in my notes, has a lot to do with the fullness of the intent, that they really do what Yahweh had intended. They are thinking, we're going to kick all these people out so that we can now have this land. Isn't that great? We get all this inheritance, and it's all about us. And no, it's about doing what Yahweh said, and you get to have because you obey. That's the covenant. If you obey, you get to have. And so that's what's going on. So yes, I like the things that you pointed out, and there's some really cool things in there, and there's even more than that. But yes, ultimately we should be learning that you can obey and not really obey. Because this goes to what I addressed on Shabbat, I think. Sometimes I do so many of these teachings in a row, the Shabbat, the Tuesday. I forget where I did it, but I think on Shabbat I was talking about, how we can do our own righteousness, we'll call it. That was out of Romans. I remember that's how we talked. The idea of they were seeking their own righteousness. In other words, I'm going to take what Yahweh said and I'm going to do what I want. That's what you see happening here. And still Paul's talking about similar things happening in his day. People were not completely ignoring the commandments, but they're doing them their own way. Well, isn't that exactly what started in the garden? Did Yahweh really say this, that, or the other thing, or can we spin it a little bit and twist what he said a little bit? Hasatan started that in the beginning. And so it had a fruitful ground for those thoughts to go to because man has it in them to be self-sovereign. In other words, to try to figure out how I want to do it my way. The old Frank Sinatra, I did it my way, right? That's our whole thing. After all is said and done, I did it my way. That's our big deal. It's terrible. All right, who's next? Okay, Rabbi Tom? And then we got to get going. It's already after 10.
Okay, I'll hurry. I noticed the 48 cities that were given to the Levites. You had mentioned before about the model of the Chabad, where they send people out. these 48 cities covered the entire land. And that's what MTOI is trying to do. We're trying to cover the entire land. I don't know if we ever will.
But we really don't just want people that are accused of murder.
Yeah, no. Well, manslaughter maybe, but like John Wayne said, some people deserve to be murdered. but I think that's a good model for us to follow, that we don't have everything in one concentrated place. It's nice if everybody could be in Jerusalem, but that isn't the way it was. They were spread all around. It's nice if everybody
From the idea of being a place of refuge, scattered amongst, I like the idea, I understand the metaphor.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. All right. I do want to make sure I've got points to hit, but I know, do you have stuff over there do you want to get to? All right, bring the mic over to Manny, and let's get some of that because it's already after 10. And I know whose fault that is. Some guy at the mic was talking too long. Okay, so I'll own that. Go ahead.
Fix it, release, right?
No, I'm not going to fix it. I'll just own it.
All right, Stephen Waffle, chapter 30, verse 2. So many love to talk and vow to do something, yet in many cases we don't keep our word because we discover the vow involved more efforts than we wanted to give. Just his particular comment.
Awesome.
Robert Wyatt on that same one. How important is it to be true to our word in all that we do in our lives today? Like in old westerns, man is only as good as his word. Let's see. Question to Rabbi Claudia, and excuse me if you got some of these because I was kind of going back and forth here. Do we know what kind of vows women made back then?
No. I mean, it could have been about anything, just like any of your vows could be about anything. And that's the point is how the vow was made. It was made in the form of, a commitment to Yahweh in His authority, in His name. You invoked that relationship to make the vow in your mind and hopefully in others, whatever, more solid. But if you weren't going to keep it, you were going to be in all kinds of trouble. Okay?
Norfleet wants to know Numbers 31:8. Balaam was put to death because of his previous disobedience.
Oh, well, look, you got to understand that Balaam, while he was kind of an interesting character in the story with Balak and with the donkey, Balaam, as we understand it, was the inspiring force behind what happened when we ended up with the whole Pinchas incident. Okay? So Balaam was basically getting what he deserved.
All right. Greg Wallen, 31:23. To me, it's like a double immersion for us. Baptism of fire and mikvah with water. Let's see, Ryan Rudolph, 33:2. Yahweh really wants us to remember our journey as we walk this out.
Amen.
Eye on the prize, Numbers 31:23. Everything must pass through the water or the fire. I'm sorry. Everything must pass through the water or the fire. Is there more to this?
Okay, well, it's still in the same verse. Every object that passes through the fire, you put through the fire, and it shall be clean. Only let it be cleansed with the water for uncleanness, and whatever does not pass through the fire, you pass through the water. And so, I think the best thing was a Rob or Greg or whoever said it, that let's go back to the teaching on baptism of fire. I think it connects up these kind of things in a good way. Water is symbolic of washing and cleansing something. Fire is the testing to get all the impurities out to see how clean it is, basically. All right?
All right. Gene, it's my understanding that oath and vow are two separate words with two separate meanings in Hebrew. Do you have clarification?
That's kind of what Rabbi Tom was asking. I don't know which Hebrew words are being used here. I don't have that in my notes. I don't have a Hebrew book in front of me. I only have the scriptures. But just understand that the idea has to do not with the oath vow thing, but has to do with that you did it in a commitment to Yahweh. And if you're going to be doing it in that, well, I talk this way. I'll talk to Marty again. I'm going to do it in a commitment to Yahweh. If you're doing it in some sort of focus where you're saying, as Yahweh lives, or Yahweh I commit and I promise, and that, whatever that is, a vow, an oath, let's not get caught up on the semantics of that. It makes a big difference probably in Hebrew when I'm doing something with you, and we're just making either an oath or a vow or something. But when we're talking about the interaction of invoking Yahweh into it, that's where you need someone to annul or agree with what you did. Okay?
Okay, Pauline, Numbers 35. Is the avenger of blood the high priest, or an angel?
No, the revenger of blood is the totally PO'd family member who's like mad that you just killed their family member. Okay? Okay, it's the person that wants to kill you because you killed their brother, their father, their sister, their whatever. Okay?
All right, last question. Chris J. Question, chapter 35, verse 33. If blood profanes the land and it's only pardoned by the one who shed the blood, how does this apply to Israel conquering cities and people groups?
Because again, what we're talking about here is unauthorized shedding of blood. See, one of the things that we should be really understanding as we've been looking through the Torah portions is that there's that which is authorized and that which is not. We see Nadab and Abihu got killed over this, okay? Doing what is not authorized. If something is authorized, it does no harm, it does no damage. If it is not authorized, it messes everything up. And so this is dealing with murder. It's unauthorized. When Yahweh says, go and wipe out everybody of the Amalekites, authorized. Totally different thing. Okay, it's not just that blood somehow wrecks the land. And by the way, adding more blood to it apparently fixes the land. So it's not about the blood. It's about the sin. The act of sin, the act of unauthorized action that causes harm to their being in the land. Okay, next question. That was it? Okay. And I've got more stuff. Okay, let's see if I get it really quickly. One of the first verses that my wife and I used in addressing our very first study together after we got married, which was trying to figure out, because we came from a background where the group we had been attending kept Passover, then waited a day, and then did the days of unleavened bread, did the holy day. And we looked at chapter 33 and verse 2, and we were confused. It's actually verse 3 where it says, and so they departed on the 15th day of the first month. When is the holy day, by the way? The 15th day of the first month. And it says, on the morrow, or the morning of the Passover, after the Passover, the morrow after the Passover. So there's no extra day. All you people from Worldwide Church of God backgrounds and United Church of God backgrounds and all the other Church of God backgrounds, not the charismatic group with guys like, Perry Stone and them. I'm talking about the descendants from, Armstrong, the Herbert Armstrong splits and things. You guys need to understand there's no extra day. Now, I know we got some of them on here, and they're probably going to be all arguing with me and mad at me, but there's just no extra day. They were with their loins girded and their boots on and their staff in hand because they ate the meal and they left the next morning. And there's lots of verses to back that up. There is no time between. The only reason groups stick time between is because of the Last Supper. Because they want to insist that the Last Supper was Passover. I don't agree. Listen to the teaching, Passover Q&A, part 2. Okay, I believe it was in part 2, where we cover the Last Supper being a Passover or not. All right, so that's an important verse because when my wife and I got together and we were studying and these things were coming up and it was right around Passover time, we were just thinking this just doesn't line up because we were looking at the Last Supper stuff, which we were absolutely told was the Passover, and we look at these verses and we go, this doesn't fit, it doesn't work. Okay. So that's actually a kind of a special verse to me because I remember it was one of our first studies when we got married. So anyway, everybody go, okay. All right. Okay. 32, 11. Okay, in 32:11 it says, not one of the men who came out of Mitzrayim from 20 years old and above is to see the land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, etc. that was promised to them except Joshua and Caleb. Why? Because they didn't follow me completely. Okay, the Hebrew has the idea they didn't follow me fully or to the full. With the fullness of what I intended. How many times have I had to use that phrase for you guys? Okay, they didn't, see, Joshua and Caleb, they saw what Yahweh was saying to see. They saw the milk, the honey, the land. They didn't care about the giants and all the other stuff. Why? Because Yahweh said we can have it, we can have it. Because they understood it as fully as Yahweh had intended it. They had the emunah, the full understanding of belief and trust and faith in what Yahweh said. Okay, very important that these people did not follow me completely, he says, except for Caleb and Joshua. He says, because they followed Yahweh completely. That doesn't mean they did it perfectly. It means that they had the Deuteronomy 8:2 stuff. I know we're not to Deuteronomy yet, okay? But we're getting there. We'll get there in like a week or two, all right? As we get to our first couple of parts in Deuteronomy, we'll get there. But understand as we're going through this, that that's still applied. He's looking to see as we go through the wilderness whether our heart is to keep his commandments from the fullness of putting him first in our lives and everything else. Okay? Look, Candace made a point. I was going to mention something about it, and I didn't at the time because I forgot. But she said that not listening to him, or not putting him first in everything is like whoring. Of course it is. Why? That doesn't make any sense, because that means you put something before him. In other words, you're supposed to love him with everything. Well, that means you must have loved something other than him more than him if you put that something before him. That's whoring. So well said. Maybe you didn't even realize you said all that, but that's what you said. She's looking at me like, did I really say all that? Yes, you did. Okay. Let's see what else I've got here real quick. I think that's enough. Okay, we'll cover it. Just recognize that, as we've been saying over and over again, you see it not only in the New Testament where we've been lately in the book of Romans, etc. We see it all through the rest of the scriptures. There is so much straightforward authority and structure here. What was the instruction that was given as far as giving out the inheritance? In chapter 34 it says, these are the men who are to divide the land, Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun, and take one leader from every tribe to divide the land. Oh, guess what? All of those millions of people had no say in what they got. You see this still in the book of Acts, don't you? They had everything in common. What did they do? They laid everything at the feet of the apostles, who then distributed it, easy for me to say. They took the stuff and gave it out as they saw fit. And nobody had a say in it. This is the structure, and you don't really see it in here. I'm sure there were some people that whined and complained a little about it. But that's the whole point, is that, look, you're about to be giving something that you earned zero of, you deserved none of. It was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What is there to complain about? After all, it wasn't very long ago that you were all slaves in Egypt, at least generationally. All the 20 and above ones are dead, but generationally, you guys you're not that far from being slaves. But I'm sure people still complained and whined. I'm sure, Moses prayed real hard for Joshua when he had to deal with the crazies. the Israelites. The thick-headed, thick-necked, stubborn, stiff-necked, self-everything, human beings, basically. People. People are people. And nothing has changed over the generations, really, unfortunately. We've not grown all that much. Okay, so that's an important thing here as we're looking at this, that we understand that once again we're seeing structure. We could talk about the 42 camps that they had, and we could talk about where they left from here and they went to there and everything else, and if any of that symbolizes anything and everything else, look, let's just take it to our simple basic walk. This is a reminder that they're walking a journey, and we're going to eventually get into Deuteronomy. We're going to understand that there's a reason for the journey, and the journey is about Yahweh examining your heart in relation to what he's doing in your life. Okay, did you catch all that? You're going through this journey so that Yahweh can examine your heart as to how you trust him or don't trust him as you go through the journey of this life. Okay? Remember we talked about on Shabbat, the idea of being called. Well, he does the calling, but you got to do the choosing. And he's watching to see what kind of choices you make. Amen? Amen. Okay, where's the mic? Nowhere? Okay. Do you want to close it, or do you want to give the mic to somebody else?
I'll close it.
All right, Mandy's going to close it. Hold on, we're going to get the camera on you.
Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we come before you acknowledging that you are the creator of everything. And we thank you for allowing us to get together in this place with our teacher, with our family, to be able to read your Torah. Abba, I ask that you just please be with us tonight. Continue to write that in our hearts, that we may remember and apply it to our own lives, that we may apply it to our hearts. Father, help us to walk this out. Help us to continue to love each other, love on one another, and continually just really immerse ourselves in your word, Father, in the teachings. Continue to speak to us and through the teachings. We ask that you be with us tonight for safe travels for everybody that's here attending, and those prayers that were given today for all our extended family out in the web. Thank you, Father, for everything you do, and we know that you cause and or allow all things for your purpose. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Don't turn it off yet. If people want to come up, we can wave. Or not. People are thinking, I didn't dress appropriately thinking that I was going to be on camera. Let me go fix myself up a little bit.
I'm sorry.
All right, so we're going to wish everybody a Laila Tov, a good night, a Shavua Tov, a good week. And then we'll tell them that we love them, because we do. We appreciate you guys out there. We appreciate all your guests who are visiting today. Hopefully, you'll visit us some more. Remember, all the teachings that we have, they're all free, so please enjoy as many as you want. Okay. You ready? We ready on the camera? All right. You're going to turn off the mic on 3, or is how are you going to do this? I know you like to turn that off, so. All right, here we go. On 3, we're going to do Laila Tov and then Shavua Tov. 1, 2, 3. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov. We love you. Your station.